Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you all today. So we're coming back to Ishizu, Vernusylph Naturia, this kind of earth pile, synchro-ish, whatever kind of deck that I've thrown together here. And this time we're going to be taking it to the WCQ 2023 event. I was a little bit hesitant actually to take this here because I definitely don't have that much experience with that deck at all, this deck rather, and I was at DL 18, like I actually managed to, like in just getting a few extra games for some footage, go up from 17 to 18, so I was like, I'll probably take the L and just go down to DL 17 again from 18 just to get some games in with this deck for a video. But surprisingly, between this and also another kind of not off meta, but not tier limit. I mean, not tier limit is pretty much off meta in this meta, right? Between this and another not tier limit deck that I also am featuring in a video probably tomorrow if all scheduling goes according to plan. We actually managed to get up to DL 19, so not only did we not rank down, we actually managed to even rank up a bit in the process. So that's cool, you know. I wanted to get to DL 17 just to, again, get some more footage in with the event with these more rogue decks, but it's nice that hey, not only are we actually getting footage with them, but we're actually advancing in the Duelist Cup as well, or the WCQ 2023. You know what I mean by this point. So as far as this list, I don't think anything is different actually now that I look at it. I did actually kind of like tear it apart and rebuild it from scratch like I do sometimes. The extra deck is slightly different. I'll talk about that in a moment. The main deck is what I was referring to. Main deck is pretty much going to be exactly the same. I still have the same spread of Naturia monsters, of course, 3 Mole Cricket and Camellia, 3 of each of those, along with the 1 of each Sunflower and Stinkbug. I would like to be playing Vayne and maybe Rose Whip too, but honestly, I just don't have the space in this deck. I would be playing more Vernusylph monsters, honestly, I think, before I played more random Naturia monsters. Although, I will say, there are a lot of times where I would like one more Naturia monster to summon out of the deck, so maybe that could be Vayne. Maybe the answer is to actually just take out a Vernusylph with Flourishing Heals for that, but the Vernusylphs obviously offer quite a bit to this deck. The current spread, and again, I think this was the spread I had in my last build too, is 3 Misting Seedlings, 3 Quacky Ducky, 2 of the Flourishing Hills, and then 1 Awakening. We have 3 of the Misting Seedlings because we also have the Ishizu Shufflers to search out, and Mudora is particularly good because we are playing Gravekeeper's Trap as well as Exchange of the Spirit as well. Exchange of Spirit. Gravekeeper's Trap, though, is very good in this deck for if you have a Naturia Secret Tree in your hand. You can activate this to send, get one of your many Earth Fairies out of your deck to your hand, and then also grab a Naturia card while we're at it. So, Mudora, Gravekeeper's Trap tends to be pretty good. For that reason, again, we have 3 Misting Seedlings, 2 Flourishing Hills just for a little bit of consistency, only 1 Awakening Forest in this deck because there's not really that much we're looking to send to the graveyard. It's usually going to be an Ishizu Shuffler. Occasionally, you'll want to bin a Mole Cricket, but usually if you're in a situation where you need Mole Cricket, you'd much rather be searching it than just sending it straight to the graveyard. It's pretty rare that you actually want to send this with the Awakening Forest, but it's mostly going to be one of the Ishizu Shufflers. Like I mentioned, we are on the Shufflers here. None of the Millers because we actually don't want to be milling a lot in this deck. The only card we would really want to mill is the Naturia Sacred Tree, and we already have plenty of ways to get that specifically into the graveyard. So, yep, just the Shufflers, and of course the Shufflers end up being very excellent disruption in this meta. So of the Naturia monsters, aside from Mole Cricket and Camellia that I've included, Sunflower is pretty obvious, the repeated monster negation, but I ultimately decided to go with Stinkbug over something like Vayne, which is Spell Trap negation, because what I'm really lacking is the battle protection. That's what Stinkbug can very valuably provide. Vayne does have the ability to, much like Sunflower, it's literally the same effect except instead of monster it says Spell Trap card or effect, but we already have like Beast and Barkion, so you know, we go into these a decent bit, especially Beast we go into all the time, so I don't feel like Vayne is more important than something like Stinkbug. I might even put Rose Whip in over Vayne, to be honest, if I was going to put another Naturia monster. Rose Whip is the one with 400 attack, 1700 defense, and says your opponent can only activate 1 spell or trap card per turn, which could be a pretty devastating lock. It's basically the original Shein, not the Synchro one, but the effect monster one, so. Otherwise, I mean, it's pretty standard fare stuff. We just have some staples, Maxx, Ash Blossom, and Imperms. We are still running the Braver package. This does make the deck a little more bricky than I would like. It you know, this is not a deck where you can really afford to be opening one of the equip spells and have that taking up valuable either combo or disruption space in your hand. However, Braver is exceptionally good in this deck, being an earth monster. That means we can go into it under the Vernusylph effects, even if we're locked into earth effects. And also, and this is going to come up in one of the games we're going to see, Braver, the effect is not when it is synchro summoned, it's when it is special summoned, which means on a follow-up turn, you can use a Vernusylph effect to bring back Braver and then hand rep again and also set up another monster negate on the Braver. So, and again, we'll see an example of that happening in the gameplay coming up here. So, very powerful tool for this deck, and pretty unique, well, at least unique to the TCG here in Master Duel, that we have access to Braver with the Smoke Grenade, because Smoke Grenade is banned in the TCG. So, yeah, it's a very powerful tool for this deck. The other things that we've added, well, we always had Braver, but what we've added to the extra deck to give a little boost of power is actually a Zoodiac engine. So, because they are all Earth, these also can be activated under the Vernusylph effect, so you can still Drident to pop, or use Boarbow to attack directly, then possibly go into a Zeus. So, very nice little engine to be adding to the extra deck, and it also provides a lot of good value there. So, I think that's pretty much everything I needed to cover with the actual list itself. As always, I'll break it down card by card so we know what's all in the deck, and then we'll look at some gameplay from the recent events. So, we are playing 3 Naturia Mole Cricket, 1 Naturia Sunflower, 3 Maxx, 1 Naturia Stinkbug, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 Vernusylph of the Misting Seedlings, 2 Vernusylph of the Flourishing Hills, 1 Vernusylph of the Awakening Forest, 2 Keldo, the Sacred Protector, 3 Mudora, the Sword Oracle, 3 Naturia Camellia, 1 Smoke Grenade of the Thief, 1 Rod of Silence Chaos, 2 Called by the Grave, 3 Naturia Blessing, 1 Exchange of the Spirit, 3 Infinite Impermanence, 3 Naturia Sacred Tree, and then finally 1 Gravekeeper's Trap. That's going to go ahead and do it for the main deck. For the extra deck, we're on 1 Naturia Beast, 1 Naturia Barkion, 1 Draco Berserker of the Tenyi, 1 Power Tool Braver Dragon, 1 Baronne de Fleur, 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 Zoodiac Drident, 1 Zoodiac Boarbow, 1 Zoodiac Chakanine, 1 number 41 Bagooska, the Terribly Tired Tapir, 1 Divine Arsenal, AA-ZEUS Sky Thunder, 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Aussa the Earth Charmer Immovable, 1 Donner Dagger for Hire, and then 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. So there's our list, and now let's look at some gameplay. Alright, so the first game I'm going to show you is a game against Tier Limits. I actually remember this one. That's not always the case for these WCQ 2023 games, like any Duelist Cup type event. I don't get to check my opponent's deck before the replay, but I remember this opponent. I remember this was against Tier Limits, because I very much remember this duel. This was a very solid back and forth duel. So, going to start off with a pretty standard fair combo. Mole Cricket going for Camellia, but our opponent has an Infinite Impermanence to negate the Camellia effect. Normally, we would be sending the Sacred Tree to get Blessing, Blessing Mole Cricket, Sink for Beast, and then get back the Mole Cricket past our opponent's turn. But here, we're going to have to make do with what we've got, which is Camellia and Gravekeeper's Trap. Now, in response, my opponent's actually going to get to fire off the Haveness in response to my Camellia activating to bring back the Mole Cricket, but I am going to, in turn, chain the Gravekeeper's Trap. That will put the Mudora in grave, adding Misting Seedlings, good old Quacky Ducky here, so that way we get to have a relatively open hand space working with the next turn here. So, let's see what our opponent milled. They did actually hit a Keldo, which is annoying. They've got an Agito as well. I'm going to use the Mudora to shuffle back their Keldo, and of course their Shiren that's activating. That won't negate the Keldo's, or not Keldo, sorry, Kelbeck. It won't negate the Kelbeck's effect, but it will stop the Kelbeck from coming back here with the Agito, which will keep a body off their board. Since I already have Camellia and Mole Cricket on the field, I'm going to grab the Sunflower and Stinkbug. We get a search off the Sacred Tree. My opponent's got the Havenous and Rhino Heart's effects proccing here. And I did hit some Mudoras, but yeah, just... Did I already activate the Mudora? Is it actually the shuffler I already used? That why I didn't use them here? I believe that was the case. Yes, it was. So, pretty unlucky to not hit a Keldo there. We just hit 2 more Mudora, which again, we've already used this turn. So, not really able to do anything with that. Although, here's something that's a little bit confusing. I actually wanted to pause this, because I'm trying to remember why my opponent did this. They made Kaleidoheart here. Just seems a bit odd to put back the Gravekeeper's trap. I guess it's not that odd, but I don't know. I just feel like there had to have been a better line for my opponent here. Maybe, maybe not. Anyway, my opponent's going to move to battle phase, but thankfully we have the good old Stinkbug to make sure that they're not going to get through to any of our monsters. Looks like they're going to use a Shuffler to put back my Shufflers during the end phase before passing back to me. So, even though that looked really scary going into the opponent's turn, literally all we had on board was the Camellia and the Gravekeeper's trap, we've actually managed to not only live through our opponent's turn, but also have a pretty good setup here. My opponent doesn't have anything in hand, is completely committed to the board, so this is actually not a bad opportunity to go for a good old Dweller Zeus line. This is something we normally do in a tier limit mirror match, but this deck has the ability to do it as well. But we also want to make sure that we are going to be protected against our opponent's back row. So first action that I'm going to take with priority is to sink for Naturia Barkion. Because, like, there's no way my opponent does not have a Zoodiac face down, right? So, gonna want to make sure we use the Barkion here to take care of that. My opponent's gonna flip up their other back row Imperm, but Barkion, much like Beast, is not once per turn. It's not even once per chain. As long as I have cards in my graveyard to banish, I can keep negating my opponent's trap cards. It seems my opponent is now desperately trying to shuffle my stuff back with Keldo, but thankfully I've got a Naturia Blessing, and aside from the fact that I have Naturia Blessing, I'm actually totally fine with my opponent shuffling these Naturia monsters back to Sunflower and the Stinkbug. That's insanely helpful because we can only really grab them from the deck. I mean, we do have some graveyard recursion, but we can more easily grab them from the deck. My opponent has literally just set them back up in the deck for me, so it definitely was not correct to shuffle those back. I don't fault my opponent for not knowing that, though. This is a pretty obscure matchup. Like this variant of Naturia. Naturia Runic is a little more expected, but yeah, like a more dedicated Synchro variant, I don't, again, fault my opponent for not knowing. So here I'm going to use the Mole Cricket to grab a Sunflower and another Mole Cricket. Now I'm going to link off for Dawn or Dagger for hire. I'm going to use this to get rid of the Kaleidoheart, but first I need to Blessing for Camellia, and then Overlay for my Dweller. So here I don't actually even need to commit to Zeus to wiping out the entire board state. What I can do is I can activate Dweller's effect, then use Donner, like I said, to go ahead and destroy the Kaleidoheart, which now can't activate. And now from here, I get to summon even more monsters, and now I get to battle over my opponent's stuff. And now, going into my opponent's turn, I have a Dweller to stop all of their graveyard effects. I have Camellia plus Sunflower to stop pretty much all of their monster effects. And if they happen to top deck an Imperm to stop one of those, still have a Barkion on the board. So definitely in a very good position here. We love to see it. Our opponent is going to, in fact, try to fire off a Rhino Heart. They shouldn't have activated the effect, actually. They should have just moved to battle phase, in my opinion, because now that I have an opportunity, now that they've activated the effect, rather, I have an opportunity to negate and destroy the Rhino Heart with the Sunflower. So this is about as good of a game against tier limits with this deck that you could ask for. And as you can see, we went first, but we were not at all in an advantageous position. Again, thanks to our opponent's Imperm, we had to end on only Camellia plus Gravekeeper's Trap to kind of desperately set up the Mudora in the graveyard. But, you know, we were still able to end up just finding the win. I think that's like keeping a level head and just finding the best play is advice I give a lot, but it's so important, and it's why games like this become so winnable. Like, I think a lot of people would have conceded as soon as they had to pass with a negated Camellia and the Gravekeeper's Trap and the opponent just started playing tier limit stuff. A lot of people would have conceded there, but as you can see, that, although despite how it looks, is still a winnable position. As long as you have life points, the position is still winnable, because like at the very worst, your opponent could always disconnect, right? Who knows? But that's our first game here. Let's go straight into the next one. So here my memory is not as great. I think this game was against Branded? Was it straight up Branded Despia, or was it Branded Tier Limit? I think it was one of the two. We'll see. We can take the first turn again, which is nice. This hand does not look great, and truth to tell, it's not super great, but what it does have is the ability to go Mudora into Gravekeeper's Trap and then pitch the Exchange of Spirit to add the Keldo. So now we've got Gravekeeper's Trap set up as pretty much an Abyss Dweller slash Necro Valley type effect that's going to be locked. And yeah, our hand's not great, so I'm just going to set on a Bagooska and pass over to the opponent. This is a tactic I really like to do. Oh wow, it was not branded, I don't think, because they have a Ecclesia. Like, that might still be branded. We'll see. I don't think it is, though. I think I remember what deck this is. But in any case, Yeah, if we don't have that great of a hand, this is always something that you can fall back on, is just making a Bagooska and passing. And there's a lot of decks, even 3 elements, that will have a difficult time managing to push through that. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely better than nothing, right? So, I call Perlorino just to try to high roll, but the opponent reveals Dogmatica Ecclesia. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not branded like I'm trying to falsely remember here. So we top deck Sacred Tree, which looks like a brick, and in a lot of Naturia variants it is, but because we have Gravekeeper's Trap, and I talked about this during the profile, this card is great in this deck for making hands live that are normally bricky by pitching the Sacred Tree as we just did here. Now I'm going to add a Mystic Seedlings to my hand, and we're going to use Sacred Tree to add the Mole Cricket. Going to activate the Missing Seedlings, discarding the Mole Cricket to add a Mudora, and then special summon the Mole Cricket. Of course, we're going to turn the Bagooska to attack mode before beginning our plays. Opponent's got a Call by the Grave for the Mole Cricket. We do have the Blessing here to help it resolve. Even if we didn't, though, we do still have the Keldo in the yard. So, even if we had not been fortunate to have Blessing here, we did still have an out, to be fair. So, Call by will not resolve because, of course, Mole Cricket is no longer in the graveyard. And now Camellia is coming down and activating her effect. We're going to bin another Sacred Tree, and then add another Naturia Blessing. Now we're going to normal summon the Mudora, and we get to Synchro Summon for level 9 Braver Dragon. This was against Branded, I remember. Their hand just isn't that great. Now we're going to equip the Smoke Grenade and the Rod of Silence. That will let us peek at our opponent's hand, and as you can see, it was Ra's Disciple, Dramaturge I discarded, Polly, and the Theater. So, yeah, this Ecclesia can't be destroyed by extra deck monsters, which is a little bit annoying, but main thing I want to do here is just go for a Zeus anyway. Could have said this Blessing, which is a bit of, maybe might be a bit of a misplay because I have the Zeus on board. Going to call Branded Fusion with the Gravekeeper's Trap, once again looking to high roll. Opponent has an Albaz. That's actually fine though, because Braver has a monster negate, so we're going to get to use that in order to kind of counteract our opponent's play. So again, here's the Albaz. Discarding Ra's Disciple, Braver Dragon is going to send the Chaos, and that will negate the effect of the Fallen of Albaz. If you use this effect of Braver Dragon, I want to point this out. It doesn't come up in the replay, but I hate some of the prompts that you get in Master Duel sometimes. So, Braver Dragon's effect, it either changes the battle position or negates the effect, right? The way it asks you, the game says, do you want to change the monster's battle position, yes or no? And the first time I activated this effect, I clicked yes. But that turns out to not negate the effect because it's one or the other. Sometimes Master Duel will do that with effects that have kind of like split paths where you have 2 options. It'll present one of the options and ask if you want to activate it, yes or no. And if you click no, the other option is what ends up resolving. I guess I understand why they do it that way. I just think it's a little confusing sometimes. I'm not a fan of it. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out real quick. So Braver Dragon is negating Albaz, but they still have the Theater to fuse for the Albion. Now, I do end up actually making a minor misplay here. I should actually be activating the Naturia Blessings effect right now. Well, okay, let me explain. So, if I want to avoid the Mirror Jade banishing one of my monsters, the right call here was to actually activate Blessing and then Zeus, I think. And then Mole Cricket's effect as well. Blessing, Mole Cricket, then Zeus, because what I could have done is, if the chain had resolved in that order, Zeus would have detached the materials, Chainlink 3, wiping the board, and, oh, but you know what, the Mirror Jade wouldn't have been summoned. Okay, so I'm actually glad I didn't do it this way. No, I'm sorry, I misremembered. Where I missed the opportunity is actually after Mirror Jade is summoned and when it activates its effect. I remember now. So right here, I just straight up chained the Zeus effect, but then I realized after the fact that I could have done a better line, which is what I was just talking about. What I should have done is Chainlink 1 Blessing, Chainlink 2 Mole Cricket, Chainlink 3 Zeus. That way, the chain would have resolved backwards, Zeus would have wiped the board, and then I could have ended with some additional bodies. To be fair, though, that's kind of debatable how good that even is, because Mirror Jade is still going to wipe the board at the end of the turn, so it's not like it's really going to do any good, honestly. It's like, it's something I could have done, but ultimately I was just like, you know. So before my opponent's end phase, I'm going to use Mudora to put back the Albion that will prevent them from searching or setting a card with said Albion. It does still have to be in the graveyard during the end phase. So I've got a Mole Cricket, which means that alone gets me plays, but the fact that I have a good old Quacky Ducky here as well means I get to make an absurd amount of plays, including a play that I mentioned earlier in the video, wherein we're going to actually use a Vernusylph effect to resummon our Graver and hand rip once again. Gonna make good old Mr. Nat Beast for value as well. That way we have some spell negation, which I don't think I need to tell you is pretty good against branded Despia, to be able to endlessly negate spells. But as if that weren't enough, we're not only ripping the polymerization out of our opponent's hand that they can't really use anyway, but the Braver Dragon does additionally offer another monster effect negation, so truly does not matter what they top deck here. They cannot come back at all. The opponent's going to draw, and then pass immediately back to us. We're going to draw, and then just enter battle phase. Yep, just enter battle phase and smack for lethal. Alright, so there's that's more of like an ideal going first game. That's typically how our games want to play out, as far as having a solid turn one opening and then still also, you know, having the follow-up that we did as well. So there's that duel. We still have a couple more to look at. Let's go straight to the next one here. Okay, this is definitely where my memory starts to taper a bit. I don't recall off the top of my head what my opponent was playing here. As we get into the game, I might remember. Again, this just comes to the territory of covering WCQ 2023 games. So we have a going second game here. Thankfully, we did open Ash Blossom and Imperm, so we do have some good tools. Ah, it was Blackwing, that's right. So I'm going to start by Ash Blossoming the Sudri here. My opponent does have a call by, but I will follow up with the Imperm on the Sudri as well, because this is the one that adds new value that makes the... Yeah, new value. It's really good. So Vatu, I think it's called. So definitely don't want them getting that, so I will use the Imperm here, even after the Ash Blossom gets called by. Opponent does have an Orochi the Squall to follow up, as well as discarding for the not quite Black Whirlwind, Black Feather Whirlwind. But thankfully it doesn't seem like they have much of anything. They're just linking into a Dark the Dark Charmer Gloomy before passing back over to me. So our hand is looking pretty solid. We have a Camellia plus a Blessing, so that's plays. Note that Camellia by itself is actually not really plays, though, because, you know, you can send... I guess you could send a Mole Cricket to the graveyard, but you don't have really a way to summon it. And furthermore, you could set up a... You could add the Blessing, but you wouldn't have anything to summon, like, unless you have another Naturia monster in hand. So... because we're going second, our opponent started with a monster with higher attack. We got to summon two things off Mole Cricket, and then because we also had Camellia, we got to use the effect to keep the Mole Cricket on board. So I'll grab a Sunflower from deck. Definitely going to still use Sunflower's effect, even though it's going to cause us to tribute, to make sure they do not get the search. I want to absolutely make sure they don't get the search here. The Nat Beast is hopefully going to be enough to keep our opponent at bay. The reason I fired off Mole Cricket is because I got a prompt that my opponent was ending their main phase, so I wanted to make sure that I got off the Mole Cricket's effect and the Camellia to get a Blessing, so on and so forth. Gonna normal summon another Camellia. I mean, at this point of the duel, we just have pretty much total control over it. Again, thanks to the Ash Blossom and Imperm that we opened. Opponent's gonna droll us, but I do not need to search anymore. That is A-okay. I'm simply going to bring back the Sunflower, battle into my opponent with everything. That's not enough for lethal, but I have multiple monster negates and endless spell negates, so I cannot imagine my opponent's going to be able to top deck their way out of this. And we'll even fire off a Maxx during the draw phase just for good measure. Opponent's got an Assault Synchron. Assault Synchron, my beloved. I hate to do this to you, but I am going to have to negate and destroy you with Naturia Sunflower here. Fun fact about Assault Synchron. I want to point this out because I think it's cool that my opponent's using this in Blackwings, because cool little lore about this card. This card is quote-unquote intended to actually be used with Blackwings. It's called Assault Synchron, as in Blackwinged Assault Dragon. It deals 700 damage to you to summon itself. That procs the Blackwinged Dragon's effect. That's also why it has 700 attack points, to reflect that same amount of damage. That's also the same amount of damage that Blackwinged Assault Dragon inflicts, and the amount of attack points that Blackwinged Dragon loses by removing its counters. Furthermore, the effect to special summon a dragon-type synchro monster that's tributed, Blackwinged Assault Dragon tributes itself to board wipe. And if you didn't believe me, if you look at Assault Synchron's art, you notice that it is black, red, and yellow. That is the color scheme of Blackwing monsters. And if you look closely, there's even black feathers in the art. So I love little just nods in cards like that, both mechanically and flavorfully with the art. That, you know, even though the card is fairly generic, it's like, hey, you're quote-unquote supposed to use it with this strategy. I just thought that was really cool. I always thought that was really cool. So, just a fun little fact I wanted to point out about Assault Synchron. The bestest boy. But, anyway, we don't have him in this deck. We've just got Naturia stuff. So, we do have another duel to take a look at. So, we have one last one. We'll go straight into it now. This one, I think, is also against branded. This one is branded tier limits, if I recall correctly. So, let's see if I'm right here. Gonna be going first again, looks like here. We do open a Mole Cricket, so that's good. And a Gravekeeper's Trap with a Sacred Tree. So, yeah, combined with the fact that we also have Maxx, not many better hands I could ask for here. I'm going to use the Vernusylph the Awakening Forest here. That looks weird to not just normal summon Mole Cricket, but it'll set up a Mudora in the graveyard, and we're only going to use Earth effects anyway for our combo line, so it doesn't bother us to be Earth locked, and it achieves the exact same line as just normal summoning Mole Cricket, which is Naturia Beast plus aforementioned Mole Cricket. It's just that now we have a Mudora in the graveyard as well. Again, setting the Gravekeeper's Trap, so that way we can discard the Naturia Sacred Tree. Opponent's gonna rip a Super Polymerization, pitching regular Polymerization to make Mud Dragon. Holy cow, they opened Super Poly in a 60-card deck. I guess the card is at 3 now, to be fair, but as if things could be worse, as we go to activate the Mole Cricket effect, my opponent's gonna Maxx me. It's like, wow, okay, I guess sometimes you really do just have everything, but, you know, things might not look great, but that does not mean this game is by any means unwinnable. Opponent is going to activate Scream and then normal summon Merly, so it looks like this is their bid to try to get a fusion off. They do hit a Fuser in the Shiren, but as we saw earlier, I managed to set up a Mudora in the graveyard. So I'm going to put back the Shiren as well as a couple of my Naturia cards to help kind of recycle my engine. This deck does tend to have grindier games, and it is possible to run out of a Naturia engine like relatively early, so I like to use any amount of spare shuffling I have with the shufflers to put back my own engine. So here my opponent's going to make Kaleidoheart. Oh no, I'm sorry, they're making Guardian Chimera. I saw 3, including a Rhinoheart getting fused, and I was so sure, yeah, that a Kaleidoheart was coming out, but it actually turned out to be the Guardian Chimera, which is totally fine. I'm going to use the Gravekeeper's Trap in response, because I imagine my opponent's going to pop it with the Chimera to get a quick search there, as well as binning the, did I bin a Sacred Tree, I think it was? Yeah. And my opponent gets to summon a Kiklos. Thankfully, we drew an Imperm off one of our draws, and my opponent very graciously cleared my board for me. So now I can use Imperm to negate this Kiklos and stop anything scarier from happening. So we'll take some damage, of course, from my opponent's fusion monsters, but otherwise, I'm actually really liking our position right now. I think with this hand, we should not have too much trouble at all answering our opponent's board state. My opponent does have regular polymerization in the graveyard, so we do need to note that our opponent's Guardian Chimera cannot be targeted. But I'm going to start off with a Keldo to bin the Flourishing Hills. That way I'm not Earth-locked, because the method that I have here for getting out of this, I'm actually going to make use of the Draco Berserker of the Tenyi that is in our extra deck. As you can see, we specialed the Keldo, and now by normal summon Camellia, we've got a 4 and a 4 setup. I even get to bring back Naturia Beast in the middle of the play with the Blessing. Alright, here's the Draco Berserker, and even though Scream is going to lower its attack by 500, that's still enough to battle over the Kiklos, and then granted the attack points to battle over Guardian Chimera. So this setup actually does a couple of things. It allows us to have the Naturia Beast up for monster negates. I waited, by the way, I didn't use Blessing during my opponent's battle phase for more damage because I wanted to wait for my opponent's standby phase so that way I could use Camellia to send another Sacred Tree and get another search. So now we have the spell negates from Nat Beast, we have the Camellia plus the Sunflower set up for monster negates, and we also have Draco Berserker's ability to banish monsters when they activate effects. That is a negate, but against fusers that's, you know, as good as a negate, so my opponent's going to go to activate the Havness effect, but I'm just going to go ahead and fire off the Sunflower effect. That will negate and destroy the Havness, which will of course activate the effect, but as mentioned earlier, I'm just going to use Draco Berserker of the Tenyi to make sure my opponent does not do any fusing. Oh, I'm out of Sacred Trees, that's right, so I'm going to just bin a Mole Cricket here. Oh, and look at that, I don't even need the Draco Berserker effect because I had a Mudora in the yard. Once again, using Mudora's extra shuffling to put more of our engine back in our deck in case we need it for upcoming turns, but I doubt that's going to be the case given the disparity of the board state here. We even get to sneak in another Naturia Mole Cricket and then a Stinkbug as my opponent summons the Albaz, but I won't use the Stinkbug here. I just thought it was funny that, like, you know, even though my opponent's only move was just summon Albaz, like, that's still not enough to even put a dent on this board, thanks to our ability to just search the Stinkbug. And I figured I'd finish with Camellia because honestly she's like the real all-star of this deck. She's fantastic. So, those are our games here in the WCQ 2023 World Championship Qualifier event. Thank you all very much for watching the duels. Now let's move to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There, for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack, you'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now. So without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.